Welcome to the deep dive. We've got this stack of sources here, dated May 28, 2025. It's articles, notes, news bits.
hmm
And our mission really is to unpack the key nuggets from all this for you. Just help you grasp what's important quickly.
Right, cut through the noise. And today's sources, they really cover a lot of ground. We're seeing potential policy shifts, justice system news, public safety incidents.
International relations, too, right? And even sports.
Exactly. Trade talks, sports updates, cultural notes. It's quite a snapshot of just one day's worth of information.
Okay, let's jump right into it then. The sources seem to lead off with some really significant reported plans. Stuff concerning major institutions, specifically Harvard University.
Yes, that really jumps out. The sources are reporting on these potential administration proposals that could, well, dramatically affect Harvard.
How so?
Well, one major point is a reported proposal to terminate all federal contracts with the university.
All of them. Wow. That sounds huge. A complete cutoff of a major funding stream. Is there more context on that or anything else being considered?
Yeah, the sources also mention a related proposal to reallocate that federal funding
Reallocate it where?
instead of Harvard, potentially redirecting it towards trade schools. So it's not just presented as a cut, but framed in the sources as maybe a strategic shift, an emphasis maybe on vocational education over, the traditional elite places.
Okay, interesting. So it's both a defunding and a redirection with a sort of different educational philosophy behind it. And there was another piece related to Harvard mentioned.
Exactly. The sources also report they're considering banning Harvard from enrolling international students
Wow.
completely.
Okay, so if you put those together, cutting federal contracts, shifting the money to trade schools, banning international students, that's a massive potential impact. How are people reacting, according to the sources?
Well, what's clear from the material is that these potential moves have already, kicked up a lot of debate.
Yeah.
And criticism, swift criticism from academic circles, it definitely highlights a kind of battle line being drawn.
Yeah, you can imagine. Okay, let's shift slightly, but stay in this national policy area. The sources also bring up reported changes in immigration policy.
They do. They note the administration is apparently looking at ending certain protections, specifically for migrant children currently in U.S. custody.
Ending protections for children. What's the immediate reaction noted in the source material on that one?
The sources point out that this idea is, perhaps unsurprisingly, raising immediate and significant concerns. Human rights groups, immigration advocates, they're sounding the alarm.
So the takeaway there is how quickly these kinds of policy ideas affecting vulnerable groups generate strong reactions.
Exactly, from those specific advocacy communities.
Okay, so some potentially big shakeups reported on the policy front, affecting education funding, university access, migrant children protections, heavy stuff. Now, let's move into some developments around the justice system and public safety. There's this fascinating, if concerning, event mentioned regarding the Department of Justice. It even got a nickname in the sources, the Thursday Night Massacre.
Right, that term refers to a specific report. It says 7 prosecutors resigned back in February.
7 prosecutors resigning together. Why? What's the reason given in the source material? That seems crucial here.
The sources are quite explicit. They state it was a response to orders they reportedly received. Orders to dismiss federal corruption charges against the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams.
Okay, that's the core of it. Resignations because they were told to drop charges against a major political figure. That's
Yeah.
not typical. What questions or concerns does this reported event immediately raise?
Well, what's really interesting, and the source material highlights this, is how this specific event apparently fueled immediate concerns about the independence of the Justice Department itself.
Right.
And, the potential for politics influencing legal cases. When prosecutors reportedly feel they have to resign rather than follow in order to drop a case, that really puts a spotlight on those fundamental questions about who's influencing justice, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That perceived independence is just so critical for public trust. An event like this, as reported, really challenges that directly.
Okay, let's shift gears within public safety, but to something quite different, a specific incident, a jail breakdown in New Orleans. Yes, the sources give details on an escape. Happened May 16th, Orleans Parish Prison, Louisiana.
10 inmates escaped. How'd they manage that, according to the report?
The detail in the sources is pretty specific, actually. They reportedly got out through a hole in a wall right behind a toilet.
Ah, the old classic method. Still works, apparently. So what's the latest on finding them as of the date of these sources?
As of May 28th, the report indicates that 8 of the 10 were recaptured.
Okay, good. Most are back.
Right. But 2 were still at large at that point.
So, a situation mostly resolved, but clearly still active with two people unaccounted for. All right, let's transition now to international matters, engagements, and trade. Sources touch on energy contracts in Iraq's Kurdish region.
hmm The U.S. apparently expressed support publicly for American energy companies holding contracts with the autonomous Kurdish region there.
Okay, but what's the complication? Is there context in the sources about these contracts?
Yes, the Iraqi federal government has actually filed a lawsuit challenging those very agreements.
Ah, okay. So you have this tension, central government versus a semi-autonomous region, and energy resources are right in the middle. What's the significance of the U.S. stepping in, as noted in the sources?
Well, it seems to highlight the U.S. commitment to those specific energy deals.
Hmm.
But it also underlines the complexities, right? The sources sort of frame it as the U.S. trying to navigate this legal and political dispute between Baghdad and the Kurdistan regional government over who controls energy resources and the money from them.
A tricky balancing act. Okay, moving over to trade, particularly U.S.-China, sources mention ongoing talks. What are their goals?
According to the material, these talks are aimed at balancing the current trade levels between the U.S. and China.
Just adjusting the existing massive trade flow. But there's another goal mentioned alongside that, isn't there? A strategic one.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's a clear strategic goal noted: reshoring critical industries, bringing them back to the U.S.
Reshoring. Which industries specifically are mentioned in the sources for this effort? And any sense of why those?
The material specifically names semiconductors, steel, and pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
Now, the sources don't dive super deep into the why for each one,
Hmm.
but you can infer, right? These are likely seen as vital for national security or economic resilience, maybe supply chain stability, making them priorities to have more domestic production.
Yeah, that definitely tracks with global events and supply chain worries over the last few years. It really shows that kind of dual approach.
Yeah.
Manage the current trade relationship, but also strategically plan to make key things at home.
Exactly. It's fascinating seeing that tension play out, trying to balance this huge existing economic tie while actively trying to become less dependent in certain critical areas.
Right. Okay, let's round out this deep dive with a look at maybe the lighter side, sports, and also a significant cultural note for sports fans, NBA playoffs update in the sources.
Yep, sources mention the Eastern Conference Finals, specifically setting the stage for Game 4. Knicks versus Pacers.
And what was the situation going into that game based on the source material?
Well, the Knicks apparently had momentum. They just won Game 3 with a comeback, looking to extend their series lead.
And the Pacers.
The Pacers, naturally, were focused on trying to even the series up at 2 games apiece.
Gotcha. High-stakes playoff basketball, expected drama, also in sports, but looking ahead, flag football, and the 2028 Olympics.
Yeah, sources note discussions are happening about whether NFL players might participate in Olympic flag football.
Interesting. Is there any reaction to that idea mentioned? Maybe some concern?
Yes, there is. The material actually quotes Team USA's flag football quarterback,
Oh, really? What's the concern?
expressing concern that, well, NFL athletes might just dominate the competition if they're allowed in.
That seems like a fair point. The difference in professional level could be huge. So what's the suggestion or advocated approach from the quarterback, according to the source?
The sources say they're pushing for a more balanced structure for the Olympic event, something aimed at keeping the sport's integrity on that global stage, not letting it just become an NFL showcase.
Yeah, an interesting challenge as flag football enters the Olympics. Okay, and finally, there is a cultural or religious note included in today's sources.
Yes, they mentioned the official announcement of the dates for Eid al-Adha in 2025.
And how are those dates determined?
It followed the sighting of the Dhul Hijjah crescent moon over in Saudi Arabia.
Right, a major global religious observance.
It is also widely known as Bakrid, observed by Muslims all over the world.
So, wow, we've really covered a huge range today in this deep dive. I mean, from these potentially transformative policy proposals affecting major institutions,
And events raising questions about institutional independence.
right, down to specific local public safety issues like that jailbreak, then shifting to the complexities of international energy deals and trade strategies.
And wrapping up with key moments in global sports and cultural calendars.
It really is a mosaic, isn't it? Shows how many different things are happening simultaneously and how they might connect.
Absolutely. All kinds of information streams coming together.
Exactly. And for you listening, we hope getting these specifics directly from the source material helps you see the currents shaping things. It's not just vague headlines, it's the reported plans for Harvard, the specific reasons cited for those DOJ resignations, the detail about the energy contracts being challenged in court, the targeted industries for reshoring, or even the specific concerns about flag football's Olympic debut. These details, hopefully, give you a much clearer picture than just a broad summary might.
Right. Whether you're trying to get up to speed for a particular reason or you're just curious, grasping these kinds of details as presented in the sources is really key to being genuinely informed on these varied topics.
So this deep dive has been our look into this particular stack of source material from May 28, 2025. We've seen how reported policy decisions can spark immediate debate.
How events in the justice system can raise really fundamental questions about independence.
And how international economic strategies are playing out on multiple levels simultaneously.
Definitely a lot to chew on.
So, as we wrap up, maybe here's a final thought for you to consider. Given this interplay we've seen today, reported national policy aiming to reshape institutions, events potentially highlighting vulnerabilities in the justice system's independence, the complex dance of international trade versus reshoring, how do the stories we tell about these seemingly separate areas actually influence each other? How might they shape public trust or future actions in ways that aren't immediately obvious?
That's a good question. Like, how does a debate about university funding or a DOJ event maybe ripple out and connect somehow with global economic strategy or public perception down the line?
Exactly. How do these different threads weave together in the bigger picture?
It's something to think about.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights straight from the source material we had. Until next time we unpack a stack of knowledge, stay curious.